All right, welcome to our second episode of The Brainstorm. We're here with Daly Black, Dallas Camerling, Tony Rugas of LP Loss Consulting. I think he's done something for everybody in this industry, and we're just happy to have him here today. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you for those kind words.
It's always a pleasure and honor to even just sit and talk with you anytime we do, whether we're at conferences or go out to dinner. So what I think would be awesome today is to just let Tony shine to the community and see what wisdom we can glean. I think people are going to learn a lot of things about you. You have a book that's going to be coming out about parts of your life, and so we'll get into that a little bit. I think it's going to be just a great time sitting here chatting for a bit.
Well, I'm very humbled that y'all wanted to even listen to my stuff.
Let's talk about the beginning of Tony Rugas' life. Start with where you were born and where you were raised, Tony.
I was raised out in West Texas around Abilene, and my early days, I swear I never owned a pair of tennis shoes till I got in high school and had to have them to play basketball. Grew up there, got out of high school, went to college, paid for all my college myself, working 60, 70 hours a week at about any job that'd pay good money.
What was the first job you did?
We started roofing, me and a friend of mine, at the age of 16. We did about 200 roofs. Seems like it was a period of year and a half.
So that brings up a lot of questions. You started in roofing at 16.
Doing 200 roofs.
200 roofs
in high school with one other friend.
In a fairly sparsely populated area. I mean,
Right.
we're not talking about going and hitting a neighborhood in Dallas or Fort Worth. That's hustling. So what got you? What spurred you into roofing?
A friend of mine came over and said, hey, this guy will pay us $100 a piece to put this roof on. In the 60s, that was a lot of money. The honest truth was, we were cheaper than the roofing company. We learned how to price, how to, get our materials and everything. Almost everything we did was word of mouth.
So you grew up hustling, and you said you went from doing roofs for $100 a piece, and now he's appraising things at $1,000 a square, and has been for, how many years have you been appraising commercial buildings, Tony?
Going back to high school, I actually consider I've been in this industry going on over 50 years now. Just in case you guys decide to stick around that long, it's a long time.
Dallas and I don't plan on leaving the industry anytime soon.
Yeah, we're here to stay. I definitely didn't get as early of a start as you did, so I'll have to live a really long time to hit 50 years in the industry.
That's right.
I got to ask, so you started doing appraisals kind of before anybody knew it. I remember my very first appraisal. Do you remember your very first appraisal? Like when they give you the call, what is Tony thinking? Hey, we have an appraisal for you.
Yeah, it was, as I recall it, I was in Odessa working for GAB, and this claims manager with Plains Insurance called me up and said, you want to do an appraisal? And I'm like, I don't even know what an appraisal is. And he told me, well, we pay this money direct to you, not to GAB. I'm like, whoa, good part-time job. Up until I lost my sense of humor and decided I didn't want to adjust claims anymore, which it seems like it was late 90s, maybe around 2000, was the best part-time job you ever found. I would run 20, 30, 1 year, $50,000, $60,000 part-time doing appraisal.
All for the carrier. Carrier was hired to do all this back then.
What happened, I was working for a company out of Dallas. I really didn't care who I worked for. I was going to do right, try to be right. Over the years, kind of developed the thought, well, I kind of like being a fast gun. I really don't care who I shoot my gun for. And the claims environment has changed over the years. As an adjuster, I've had a lot of titles. General Adjuster, National General Adjuster. 2 companies even sent me business cards for a hurricane, tsunami, whatever you want to call it, that hit Australia and New Zealand, entitled me Senior International Consulting Executive General Adjuster.
Say that 10 times fast.
Right.
Yeah, and I
that's a good Good one for email sign-off.
Yeah.
Well, whenever my wife opened up the box and I looked at them, I promptly picked up the cell phone and called the senior VP at CL. First thing I asked him is, how long did you idiots sit around the conference room drinking coffee and eating donuts to think up that name?
Well, what happened was they couldn't agree, so they took one word from each person's idea and just mashed it together.
I don't know, but I mean, it was like amazing feat just to get on the stupid business card. Their plans never worked out. I may still have one of the stupid cards at the house, but I think I threw them away.
So at that point, you didn't care who hired you, but at what point did you stop adjusting and decide, I'm going to be a full-time gunslinger?
After Hurricane Ike down in Houston.
So you've got a lot going on. Obviously, you've got the level of playing field forum that you're very active on, and you've got the book that's going to be coming out about your life. I hope I'm not giving too much of a spoiler alert, but I understand it's tentatively titled Wisdom from an Old Warhorse. Insightful and interesting. I'm going, wow, I did not know that about you. So we've kind of talked about your life in adjusting and appraisal. You started contracting in roofing at 16. Really, where you're at now was pivotal to one moment, which is when you got into the claims side. So can you walk us through how you got from that 16-year-old doing roofs for $100, but then at some point you got into being an adjuster, which really started the trajectory that brings us here now. So tell us that story, how you got across that divide.
Got my degree in accounting. Got a job as an accountant, didn't like it. Moved in with a couple of my friends that were living in Austin. I was 18. One night, they wanted to go out. Being young men, we were hitting bars. Woke up the next morning, came out, my car was totaled. And I'm like, whoa, I better find a job with a company car. So 3 days later, I had a job offer from the American Heart Association working in Harlingen, Texas. Or I had a job with GAB, or General Adjustment Bureau, which at that time was one of the largest independents in the country. Both offered company car. Heart Association actually paid a little bit more money, but in my interview, the personnel guy asked me, why do you want to come to work for GAB? And I said, well, he had a big window out behind him, and I said, if you turn around and look at that window, and I said, everything you see out there that man made, I figure is insurable. I figure it all has value, and I want to be in an industry like that. So they hired me. I think he told me they had 200 applicants and they were only taking 2. He hired me, and Odessa, Texas was my first office, etc. Those days you were a trainee for about 2 years, then after that you were considered dangerous. And he came in, you gotta remember it was the old paper days. I mean, we couldn't even make a copy. We had to use mimeograph machines or carbon paper. And he said, we got this room over here full of books, you need to read all these books. I sat down and read all the books. Then about 2 or 3 months later, everybody's laughing and talking, and they said, you mean you actually read all those books? I'm like, yeah. Including the FCNS bulletins? I'm like, yeah. And I have to tell you, felt pretty stupid then, but looking back on it, it gave me a real solid foundation. And being out in Odessa, we worked multi-line, which not just property, but oil field, cotton, trip transit, auto casualty, even stuff like jeweler's block. And during my tenure with GAB, oh my gosh, I even did cow in the cornfield claims up in Missouri and Illinois. So what I think that did, it gives you a broad foundational understanding of insurance-related issues. And one thing I'm real proud of, during 40 years, as far as I can recall, unless it was a casualty file with a plaintiff attorney already involved, not one of my claims files ever went to litigation or to appraisal.
Wow.
And the reason I'm real proud of that is I listened to the contractor. I listened to the policy holder. I looked at the coverage that was afforded, and I truly believed my job was to adjust the claim, but properly, and to pay that insured or the policy holder every single penny that they were due under that policy, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense.
I mean, I have just a quick commentary as somebody who's been in this industry a number of years now and has done a lot of different things. For my age group and number of years in the industry, I probably have a lot more experience than most in my category. But I'm sitting here jaw-dropped at what he just said. There are a couple of things that I think most folks are not going to understand. One, the FCNS bulletins, having tried to read some of them, they are an impeccable cure for insomnia.
Oh, yeah.
So to read all of them, first of all, is amazing.
Did they take you snipe hunting too?
No.
But to talk about all the different types of losses that you had adjusted are mind-boggling, because I've only ever done property. I've never even done auto. I've never done a corn claim or a cotton claim or a farm claim. I've only ever done property. And there's so much within property that I still don't know. To not only master that, but to step into other areas of loss is just mind-boggling. I mean, truly, like, I think people need to just take a second and put that in perspective. That's like achieving a very high-level rank in every branch of the military, starting from an E1 each time.
Well, I don't know if I'd say like in the military, because that's about as special as you get in my book. But
No, I think I agree with them. You know, it's more than going through every rank. I think you're more of like a Navy SEAL. A SEAL stands for Sea, Air, and Land Specialist. That means
There
you
you
could
go.
do it all. You
what,
could do it all.
What my knack was, there are a certain type of people that they see the fire and they stand back for a second or hesitate a second, and they say, I don't know if I want to walk into that fire. Kind of the way I operate, and one of the reasons Steve and I get along so well. If we see something, we think, it's going to be fun to walk through that fire. Let's go do it and see if we survive.
That's definitely the Navy SEAL mentality for my... Yeah.
Not afraid, turn and burn.
Never mind.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
London's
see, you
right.
guys know more about that than I do.
To back up, you said that you had to go through this training and experience for at least 2 years before you were dangerous. Today, I think that we deal with adjusters out on claims that 2 weeks before they were adjusting our client's roof, they were delivering pizzas. We had one adjuster that was a Santa Claus at the mall before he was adjusting claims for the insurance. So the information was available. You were trained to go and obtain that information, and with that, there was nothing that you felt you couldn't do. But there was a point, you said, that sometime after Hurricane Ike, that they started telling you what to do and cutting off your creativity to use the information available. When was that?
It was about 2 or 3 years after Ike. I looked up and just said, I'm lost my sense of humor. I don't want to do it no more.
Well, I think your story deserves to be told, Tony. I mean, you've seen so much history and claims handling practices, both back and forth. You've seen the ups, the downs, the ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you've remained a man with conviction throughout all of it, which
thank
has
you.
led you to where you are today. I think that's what's so interesting, because, from my understanding, policyholder attorneys like myself, Daly and Black, didn't exist so much before Hurricane Ike. It wasn't until Hurricane Ike and Steve Mauston and during that time that really came to fruition on bad faith and policyholder attorneys getting paid attorney's fees on top of what the carrier owes. That wasn't happening before. My father was a contractor. He said, we don't know anybody that used to do what you do. We used to settle these things in the driveway.
The environment changes. I will preach this in today's environment. If you're going to be a successful contractor, you need a relationship with a good public adjuster such as Dallas Camerling. You need a relationship with a good law firm such as Daly and Black. You need a relationship with an appraiser that knows what they're doing, not the guy that'll do the job for $500 and is learning as he goes. If you do not make time to do that, I'm sorry, you may be successful, but you're being lucky. If you're going to do it, properly posture yourself to be successful. Honest truth is, an adjuster don't even have to talk to them.
That's right.
And I think that's something that I hear a lot of complaints about from contractors. I hear it all the time. They owe me for this, or they have to respond to me within a certain amount of time, right? And my response is, well, actually, they don't owe you anything. They're actually going above and beyond a lot of times to even talk to you. They owe the carrier or their legal representative within the confines of the policy and the statutes. That's what governs that interaction, not you, the contractor, reaching out. So I think the carriers are not necessarily choosing the dark side there. They're really just kind of restricting the light that they've allowed for a long time. They're very smart. And it's becoming far more difficult for contractors and supplementers to get to the carrier directly, which goes back to your point why I think it is so important to have that attorney, to have that public adjuster, to have that appraiser, pick the right tool for the job, and have a team, have them all work together where they can all work together in a consensus and go, you know what, yes, you need to go to appraisal, but it's a large loss and you really need to have an attorney involved helping guide that process. So it can be a team effort.
We've been real blessed on our level the playing field forum in that I don't have to sit there and try to answer the questions all the time anymore. Steve does it because our membership, it's truly increased exponentially in that somebody can post a question and literally within 15, 20 minutes a lot of times get 3 or 4 answers from people like yourselves.
I mean, what other forum out there is there that they can post a question and they've got somebody like London or another attorney that can directly answer that question in the appropriate manner for that situation?
By far the best forum that exists. And
By far.
and not only that, it's just, if you're new to the industry, I recommend people get on there and just read and just to understand the type of issues that pop up, because just like they stuck you in the room to read everything there, I think if you read everything on that page, you will understand what the 10 most common objections are and how to overcome them.
Absolutely. You will just learn so much by just even watching. And you've mentioned a lot of resources that you've got and the team has got. Obviously, Steve has his book, which has been out for a number of years, and that's offered free. You guys are on the forum. You've got the LP Loss Consulting side. You and I have the LPLC's coaching network coming out soon, which is I'm super excited about. London and I have kind of a couple of questions here, and we'll just get into a topic on kind of the first coaching point here. I don't think there's anybody who's a better expert in, and that is large loss. London and his firm are known as one of the top large loss firms. I'd like to think my PA firm is pretty good at large loss. You obviously are the king of large loss. So,
well, that's gracious.
I think this is my favorite one to answer. What advice can you offer to a novice or a new roofer who's maybe inexperienced with the commercial realm, who has found themselves a large loss project?
First thing, don't go around telling everybody about it. Loose lips sink ships. Next thing is make sure you've got a network that supports you. Call London or Daly Black. Talk to them about your issues. Call your PA. They may not want to sign a contract with you, but make sure you've got your foundation properly laid to move forward on that large project. And I use the word project because if you're a contractor, it's really not your large loss. It is that of your policy holder. What you have is a large project. And next thing, most important, make sure you've got proper cash flow and make money off of it. Because if you don't, you're going to get halfway through that $1 million project and you're going to look up and say, I don't have any money in the bank. That comes in under making sure your contracts are set up properly.
You said a couple of things there. First of all, I wholeheartedly agree, and I'll speak for myself, and then I'll go ahead and just speak for London because I know he'll share the same sentiment. But if you snag a large loss, call who you've got a relationship with. And if you don't have a relationship, call London or call me or call both of us and let's chat about it. Even if the homeowner or the business owner or whoever it is that has that large loss doesn't even want to sign with us, we don't care. We want you to be successful. And you need to make sure you've got a team of people. You said something else that really I want to drill deeper on. Keep quiet. You said loose lips sink ships. That is kind of an antithetical response to what our initial nature is. You rope a $3 million townhouse association. What's your first thing? Well, you go pop a bottle of champagne because it's your first one. You start back in your day, I don't know, but today it's on Instagram and Facebook and all this stuff, and everybody's promoting, hey, look at what I'm doing now. Why do you say don't do that? What is the wisdom behind that you have?
Other people steal it.
That's simple enough.
People will pirate your contacts, pirate your leads. You mentioned open a bottle of champagne. You open the bottle of champagne after you get your final check, because people will also, as a contractor, try to do you out of you. You know, some of you do money as you go along.
I'm gonna say, or you're involved in litigation on that case,
right?
And the photographs of you popping bottles in the beginning are being circulated around, making you look like the greedy contractor, which is never always what they try to do.
And
always.
A follow-up question out of that is, what do you see as the success rate when you get into those claims? On the smaller losses, there's a pretty high success rate. When contractors sign that deal, they more often than not are putting the job on. They're putting the money in the bank and moving on. But when you get into large losses, it's a different risk factor. Kind of what is your take on the riskiness of large loss, the chances of not getting the job or it not getting bought?
The difference between big ones and small ones are the number of zeros involved. The difference is the complexity and the amount of risk that you're willing to run in order to develop cash flow. The number of zeros, the complexity, and the risk. Because people will come after you a whole lot harder for big money than they will small change.
Getting into appraisal specifically, got some questions that were actually fielded by some of the members of the forum. So they asked some good questions. First one is, who is the most formidable appraiser that you have opposed in your career that you can think of? Give them a big shout out or say pass and we'll edit that out.
I have to think about it a little bit. I don't look at them as being formidable. I look at it as, are they worthy opponents in the gladiator ring? Brett Lockridge is a worthy opponent. Let's see, who else?
He's been your opponent on a number of,
you
large
guys
losses.
have met a couple times
sent
before.
to you guys for appraisal.
He's a great guy, but he's a worthy opponent. There's a number of them who are worthy opponents.
I think the carrier sends you Brett because they see you as the same.
No, I don't know about that. I don't know. Half the time we don't even know, whenever you're appointed as appraiser, you don't even know who the other appraiser is.
You may not, but whoever is the second person choosing knows who they're choosing against.
Yeah, and I would, kind of the way I categorize it, it's your approach to appraisal. Do you understand what the appraisal clause actually says?
Did you even read it?
Yeah.
Right.
Do you understand your limitations?
Wait, this one's AAA?
Yeah.
It requires both parties to consent?
What?
Jeez.
I like the fact the appraisal clause is simple. I know it's evolving in a different direction. How successful it'll be, I don't know.
That's a great point, and I think London would probably have a good commentary on this. We are getting more case law that directs appraisal. There probably wasn't any for many, many years, and now we're starting to get a lot of cases. The carriers are starting to kind of push the bounds here. Honestly, some of the policyholder guys are starting to push the bounds a little bit, and so there's this case law that's coming out, whether obviously the big one, State Farm v. Johnson, whether we have the Tippett's case, whether we have that case out of Amarillo. I'm seeing that there's kind of a state of confusion about what are we actually limited to in appraisal. Like, is a date of loss something that can be considered in an appraisal when it comes to settling the amount of this loss? Well, there's a case that says yes, and a lot of cases that say no. From London's perspective, kind of where do you see that going in the future of appraisal?
I think the more adversarial the appraisal process is, the more law is going to come out of it. The law that's come out of it is it's non sequitur. If you try to put it together
Totally.
to give an answer,
Totally.
if you're Dallas or you're London and you want to put all these cases together and try to understand what are the courts saying about this, it doesn't equate. But I think to just back up and put the 1,000-foot perspective on it, it just goes down to freedom of contract.
I give the other appraiser, I say, you want to agree on this and act right, or do you want to pick a fight? And if they come up with a number that, by my findings, is ridiculous, I don't debate it anymore. Let's go to umpire.
Yeah.
The opposing appraiser, if they've got lick of sense, they're the same way. We're in dispute. Let's go.
Tony, have you ever seen a carrier point to a prior date of loss and exclude a claim for a prior date of loss when they actually covered the property during that prior date?
I've seen it, but the times that I believe it is effective is if they covered a loss on a prior date and made payment and the work wasn't done or addressed.
Right.
Yeah, that's a different issue.
Now, if the, say, hail claim occurred 3 years ago and policyholder had water leaks for 3 years because they didn't do anything to try to stop the leakage, then I could see the carrier legitimately say, nope, you didn't take steps to mitigate
Right.
damage, blah, blah, blah.
It's getting more complicated because carriers are getting better at analyzing how they're getting beat through ambiguities in the policy, and they're closing those loops. We're seeing policies that are stricter and stricter and stricter these days. I just met with a commercial client last week, and I had to tell her, honestly, your policy's really, really tough. You've got a strict prompt reporting issue. You've got an ACV time element. You've got a cosmetic waiver. You've got a mutual agreement appraisal clause. Pretty much kicked me in every side of the stomach on that policy, and that's becoming more common than not. So,
and I want to stress this again because really it applies to all of us. If I'm involved in something and I've got a question that's in your field of expertise, London, I need to call you and say, what do you think about this? Or if it's in your area of expertise or vice versa, rather than thinking I'm so smart and I know everything that you know, you make yourself a whole lot more successful that way. Because as a contractor, if I'm out there trying to argue coverage, which number one's against the law, with an adjuster, I may be successful, but I'm increasing my risk and I'm doing a lot of non-productive arguing for one job.
you could be out selling more.
If you're a good contractor, you acquire your job, you sell the job, you do the work, you collect your money and go sell 100 more.
That's funny you said. We just did a podcast special on a contractor that contacted a network that he could trust.
Yeah.
He worked with, myself and a public adjuster directing him what to do, not to the carrier, but how to direct his policyholder what to do. He successfully resolved a 7-figure claim, one of his first, actually.
That's awesome.
Good.
Without
Good.
ever talking to the insurance company.
Well,
No communication other than
And
sending his
that's
estimate. And
the
that's
way it should be.
That's right.
Yes, because it goes back to what I said before. Got to build your foundation no matter what you do. And if you don't build it from the ground up, while you may be successful, sometimes you're going to get your head taken off before it's all said and done.
Well, we've covered a lot, and I know we're kind of winding down here. I want to close it out with just 2 questions asked by one of the followers of the forum, who I may or may not be related to, and may or may not have said that she would kick my butt if I didn't ask this question to Mr. Tony. And so, what is the one thing that contractors need to not do? If there's one thing that you see contractors make a mistake in the insurance restoration world, what is that one thing that they need to watch out for?
Make sure you've got your foundation for success set properly.
Going in guns blazing without ammo, not a good idea.
Well, one of my favorite stories, and I know Steve will probably roll his eyes, but one time years ago, he and Adam and I, we were over at some apartment complex over in North Dallas. And they were helping me do inspections, because something a lot of people don't know about me is I basically, by most people's standard, not had legs that work real good since I walked out of high school football. So they were helping me. I was having a bad leg day, and they come back. I said, "You got everything?" We had the tailgate of the pickup down. I'm sitting on there. "Oh yeah, we got everything." I said, "You look at that porpoise over there in the swimming pool?" And they looked at me. "That porpoise is in the middle of the pool." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you got telephoto cameras. Y'all got those fancy cameras." They came back. "Porpoise has hail damage." That porpoise was a $50,000 porpoise.
That'll hit you in the next bracket. That reminds me of
What if they had authority for that?
Right.
And I will say this in Steve's defense, he's extremely intelligent, but that's one of my favorite stories about look at everything.
That reminds me of a claim. As IAs, many times we were on fee bills, and it's a tiered structure. So the more you write, the more you get paid. So up to $2,500, you get this much, between $2,500 and $10,000, and it goes on and on and on, right? And so I was right before a tier where that particular fee bill, if it was below that, it really kind of paid crap for what effort you were putting in. Once you hit this dollar amount, it all of a sudden became really worth your time, and I was about $800 short, going, dang, I don't think I can sneak anything else in here.
Where's the porpoise?
I'm looking for the porpoise, right? So then I find out that they had a mailbox that was handmade from this artisan out of copper in the shape of a tractor, shape of a John Deere tractor.
Yep.
Do you know how much that thing cost? $2,600.
Wow.
That put me right over that fee bill, didn't it?
Yep.
Finding one dent in that custom copper mailbox.
And the carrier never hired you again.
No, they did actually.
Well, from an adjuster's standpoint, though, if you run 100 claims and you turn those claims in 30 days and your average paid claim, let's say, is $10,000, you take the same sample of claims. If I run 50 of those claims in that same time period, but I do not miss damage, I do not omit stuff that is proper, as an IA, I'm actually making more money than you did running your 100 claims, similar to
100%.
the example that you just said. And I'll argue it with carriers till the sun turns purple. I'm actually saving them money because their back-end cost on even 20% of that 100 claims ends up costing them more money to fight or readdress than it does doing it right the first daggum time.
I couldn't agree more. It's something that really kind of pushed me out of the IA world predominantly. I'm still got a toe in it, but that was the big thing that pushed me out, was why are we purposefully not including everything on the front end? I can get this settled with this contractor. I've worked 80 claims with them this storm. I promise you I can make this go away and everybody's going to be happy. But you're handcuffing me and telling me no, they're going to have to supplement. They're going to have to go to appraisal. It was something I didn't understand. It doesn't
or go into litigation. I mean,
100%.
That's the reason us guys are all so busy right now, is the current change in the culture and the environment.
I think that this comes to our last question, and that would be, what do you see as the biggest change or, as far as a trend in the industry, maybe towards the later half of your career, since the first half seemed to be pretty steady without many changes? The carrier pulled the blinders off it, and you continued your path of conviction, but it began your walking away from the carriers and representing policyholders. What trend do you see occurring today that could help contractors that are working in the industry right now?
An adjuster's role was always to adjust the claim, to try to make sure the value was right, the coverage was properly applied, etc., etc. But one of the changes I've noticed was the relationship with the consumer. It's almost like there's been a move where instead of taking care of the consumer, it's almost like the consumers become the adversary. And you think about it, just a small segment of the overall work goes into litigation. Only a small segment goes to public adjuster.
Right.
Less than
Those-
1%.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, those, I don't know the percentages, but the bulk of the people helping the policyholder are contractors. They're the ones out there day in and day out. Everybody wants to tighten regulations and laws, or the carriers do, to protect themselves and supposedly, if you're looking at the spend, protect the policyholder. That is the reason I cannot stress enough. Get to know a London, a Daly Black. Get to know a Dallas. Set your team up to be successful as a contractor. And I think y'all have heard me repeat that stuff at least about 4 or 5 times. So anybody that's going to listen to this, I think it's pretty important, at least.
And I think there's not a one of us that would give free advice to any contractor that called us. I know you do. I know you spent probably years of your life giving free advice, Tony. But Tony, you're in the back of everybody's minds that just you're up in a cloud somewhere like the Wizard of Oz, and it's just so great to bring you back down here to the ground and actually get to ask these questions.
Now, are they cussing me if they're thinking?
Oh no. They're you're a formidable opponent to the carriers, and we respect you in the industry. We really appreciate everything that you've done for the course of your time. And he has a book coming out, ladies and gentlemen. It's
The Wisdom of an Old War Horse.
Written,
What a fitting title.
Written by Jessica Mundy.
And so,
that's a must read.
for sure. And how can people best get a hold of you for this Wisdom one-on-one? Is it through the forum? Obviously, they need to be joining the forum, but shooting you a message?
Shoot me a PM, or
PM.
usually somebody funnels them to me.
Yeah. Well, I know we're closing out on time, so
It was wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen.
this was absolutely great. We will have to do it again. So get with Tony through the forum if you have questions that are technical, if you have questions about appraisal. I am blessed with the opportunity to help manage the appraisal side with LP Loss. Feel free to shoot me a message or call me, 817-823-0286. Call Tony, call Steve. We'll get you taken care of. Obviously, London, how do people get a hold of you?
Sure. Direct number 720-925-0785. If you call me, I call him, he calls me. We're all share in the gatekeeping role as to what's the next best thing to do, and we learn from great men like Tony here. So thank you, Tony, for being here. I appreciate
Y'all are
it.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for putting this on. Thanks for taking the time, everybody, and taking the time to just listen to this. Really, such an honor.
Tune in next time for the Brainstorm. Talk to you soon.